All right, great to see everybody. What a wonderful turnout today. And again, I know you guys have a lot going on, so we never take that for granted and appreciate your interest in what we're doing. Jonah, good to see you this morning. So this really resonated with me during my undergraduate years at Georgetown, where you would walk across campus and you could distinguish who the Northerners were from who the Southerners were by how fast they walked across campus. And, of course, me being from Staten Island, I was one of the fast walkers. So you were moving a little bit slow this morning, but we did wait to start for you to get all settled in, get your situation ready to roll. So good to see you, as always, and appreciate you. Our new president, President Jenko, started yesterday, so welcome to Buffalo, and excited to work with her. And I think there's just so much potential at this place, and really excited to see what her vision and what kind of changes she is going to make. I actually had an opportunity to spend some time with her husband yesterday, who's a great guy. So looking forward to what the near future brings there. I also realized that I spoke in error at our initial Day One press conference last week. I credited Ernest and Julio Gallo for serving no wine before its time, but one of our alum donors who appreciates the 1980s as much as I do quickly corrected me and let me know that that was Paul Masson and Orson Welles in the commercial. So I stand corrected on that, but any 80s reference we can make is certainly a good thing. We are 6 practices in at this point, so not too far along. We've got a energetic, competitive, high energy, young, experienced group. I guess that's how I would describe them. And these practices have had a lot of highs and lows to them, and certainly we're working towards a lot more consistency. We have a lot of guys that just simply haven't been there and done that yet, whether it's the fact that they are younger players in our program that have redshirted and not seen a lot of playing time other than what we do in practice, or a lot of these new players that have come in from different places, and in many cases Division II programs where this is a step up for them, and they're realizing the competitive level in practice every day, and that they have to really treat practice like games. So there's a lot of interesting dynamics going on, a lot of new coaches that are getting used to dealing with me and the organization and the flow that I expect. But there's a lot of good people. And so, there's naturally some ebbs and flows and some bumps in the roads and some stressful moments. But at the end of the day, I really like everybody that we're working with. Now, one thing I will tell you, and I'm always very honest, when you have a young team like this and they're competing for playing time, and there tends to be a little bit of drama, so last night was one of those practices where the only thing we were missing was Meryl Streep. So I'm trying to get that suppressed a little bit and just stay focused on doing your job and doing it over the course of a day right now, because we are spending a lot of hours together over the course of a day or over the course of a 2-hour practice or a 1-hour walkthrough. So that's definitely very much a work in progress. I will say that I do like the mentality of our defense. I do like the way these guys show up every day. We pride ourselves in being a blue-collar type program that expects hard work and dedication and the right mindset. And for the most part, we have seen that from our defense throughout these first 6 practices. That energy that I was talking about, and it's palpable with those guys. I like the amount of communication that I'm hearing, whether it's in a walkthrough or a team period. Our offense has been trying to test the defense not only with what they're doing schematically, but with personnel groups and formations to kind of force some of that communication, and I think that has been very good. Our secondary is certainly the most experienced part of our team, and that has shown up here in these first 6 practices. Our corner position is, I believe, as deep as it's been in our 3 years here, or going into season 3 here. Tez Bradley, Kobe Blackwell are returning starters, and both very good players, very good cover men, continuing to challenge both of those guys to step up and be better tacklers, which I think they're capable of doing. But we've got a lot of competition for that 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, even potentially 7th, 8th spot beyond that. And a lot of guys are doing a lot of good things at that corner position. We've had a couple injuries there, but I feel like our depth is good enough that last night some of our young guys, redshirt freshmen, sophomores, stepping up, making plays in the first live work that we've gotten through camp. So very pleased with that group and the potential that they have. Our safety group is among the best leaders on our team and some of the best experience that we have on the entire team at this point. Savion Brown has played a lot of football for us at that nickel position, and he's playing more physical. He's playing fast. We feel very comfortable if he's got to go into the box in certain looks. Miles Greer is one of the more introverted guys on our team, but you want to talk about a guy who has just embraced the opportunity here, coming from Division II Shepherd and had a really nice season last year, and he's playing extremely well and really starting to come out of his shell and become a leader over there on defense. I would say the same for Savion Brown. Both of those guys are really breaking out of their shell. John Keogh has played a lot of football here the last 2 years on special teams. He's now stepping into a role where he's playing a lot more at safety. Ronell Davis has played some special teams, overcome some injuries his first 2 years, now going into his 3rd year, is playing with a lot of confidence. So there's some other safeties that are competing beyond those 4 guys. So very happy with the secondary. Linebacker is an interesting group. You have some older transfers that have played at different levels and come in with maturity. And we have some young linebackers that I think we've recruited extremely well at that position the last 2 years. So between redshirt freshmen and true freshmen, it's just a real interesting mix of guys right there. And it's going to be real interesting to see how it plays out. They have really gravitated towards and embraced Alex Garwig, our new linebacker coach. He had very big shoes to fill with Joe Bowen leaving for Pitt. Joe did a tremendous job, and Alex has stepped in, and that has been a very smooth transition in that room. Like any other transition, there's some little tweaks and some different things that Alex is doing, and those guys have really embraced all of that. These freshman linebackers that we have, they remind me of the Hanson brothers from Slapshot. The only difference is instead of going back to the hotel room and playing with electric cars, these guys are in the building watching film for all hours. And it's been that way since the spring with the early enrollees and all summer long. And these guys are willing to run and hit and put their face on people. We did a pretty competitive special teams drill last night that we call Strike Zone. And between Matt Heininger and Jack Garbolino, just 2 of those 4 freshman linebackers, I mean, there was some willingness to strike people and on whether they were the blocker or the cover man. So I'm encouraged by a lot of what I'm seeing from that linebacker group, and just a lot of really good personalities there. The D-line is an interesting group. Cornell Evans is our veteran. He's our fifth-year guy, which is somewhat unusual in the group of six nowadays to have a guy. Cornell has just been a very low-maintenance, hard-working, dependable guy for us the last 2 years, and he's really emerging as a leader on that defense. And the rest of that D-line is either young or new to the program for the most part, but very pleased. They're a feisty group, and we've got to rein them in a little bit every once in a while. Some of the technique that's showing up is not exactly what we want, but there's no lack of effort from the group, and there has been a lot of progress. And Chris Climbs, Rex Stinchcomb are both redshirt freshmen that we've been saying for a year that we think both of these guys are going to be very good players, and I'm still very cautiously optimistic that they will be sooner rather than later. Mason Nichols, Stan Smith are two transfer D tackles that have really come in and fit in well and have really given us good depth there. And then our edge position, you've got Will Clark, Jakari Bennett that are both rising third-year players, and we've talked a lot about the need for guys that have been in the program 2 years to really make the most of this third year and step up, even if they haven't played a lot of football yet. And those two guys fall into that category. And then you look at Logan Goodwin, who's been a fabulous addition coming from IUP, Pennsylvania guy. He's been a tremendous addition that we have very high hopes for. Cedric Vessa, who also came out of that league, another Pennsylvania guy. Caleb Oliver, who came from Wofford. Like, the progress of those three guys in the spring, you saw flashes, but they were raw. And now, as they come out of the summer and into preseason, they're starting to refine their technique and play well in the system. So I feel like we have a lot of potential on defense. The effort is definitely there. The buy-in is definitely there. The culture is good. We have some depth, and we've got the ability to mix and match some guys in different personnel groupings there. So it's still very, very much a work in progress, but I like the direction that we're going and the foundation that's in place. We've talked a little bit already about going back to last week and in the spring about the battle that's going on at quarterback, and we continue to evaluate that on a daily basis. One interesting nugget that I would say at quarterback over the last 2 or 3 practices is Q McNeil, who's a true freshman from Milton Academy in Boston, and a really nice recruit for us that was not able to early enroll because sometimes those prep schools want you to finish there and graduate with the class, and Milton was one of those places. But he's really started to shine the last 2 or 3 practices, and he's going to continue to get more reps as he shows he can compete. But we've got so many other battles going on offense and on special teams. The quarterback one is obviously the most high profile, but kicker, we brought in Zach McGowan, who's a local guy who kicked at Brockport last year, and he certainly got a big leg. And then Oliver Houghton, who we redshirted last year, is coming back from an injury, and he's just starting to kick again. And all of a sudden, we've got a really nice battle going on there. At punter, Ethan Stump and Andrew Van Slyke have been battling since the spring, and that continues to go on. We brought in Joseph Stover, long snapper from Georgia Tech. This guy graduated from Georgia Tech with 2 years of eligibility remaining. I recruited Joseph at South Carolina, was trying to get him as a preferred walk-on there out of Savannah, and he had the opportunity to go to Georgia Tech in-state with the Hope Scholarship, which was a great opportunity for him. But I've known him since he was in high school, and great to have him here. He's in a master's program, really bright guy, and he's added a lot to that specialist room as a snapper. Stevie Bracey, who's one of our transfer linebackers, is also a good snapper, and Sam Stratton, who's a walk-on transfer. So our specialist room went from being very small, and we were actually very limited to what we could do in spring practice, to now we're really in a position where we've got a lot of guys there, good guys, good competition going on. Their life during preseason is a little bit easier than it is for the rest of these guys. I'm not saying that they can go out and play 9 holes every day, but they are working really, really hard. Tight end has been a pleasant surprise, and I don't, maybe a surprise is too strong of a word, but Clint Walker, who we brought in from Davenport, Division II, just a blue-collar guy from Goshen, Indiana, not too far from where I was at Ball State and Muncie for 5 years, has been a really nice addition to that tight end room and the offense in general. And then you look at those second, third, fourth spots. Trevor Wilson's a transfer. Mike Gelotko is a redshirt freshman who's really progressing nicely. TJ Sabatucci is a true freshman, not an early enrollee, but, man, this guy is physically developed, and he's got a really good football IQ. He'll put his face on you. And so we've got some nice battles going on there at tight end, and the rest of that room continues to develop as well. Running back, Terrence Shelton has been very dependable, but Messiah Birch has looked good and really flashed in a few of these practices. James McNeil is running hard. Nino Hill is running hard. That group is starting to do a better job with some of the other things that we expect out of that position, whether it's blocking when we're in 2-back sets, or it's pass protection, catching the ball out of the backfield. And what I keep impressing upon that running back room, and the tight end room for that matter, is that those groups have to help us on special teams. One of the slides that I showed in the team meeting the other day is if there's 75 snaps on a good day offensively in a game, and you happen to be in one back, well, that's 75 snaps for a running back, whichever combination you're playing in that game. If 3 of those guys started on the 4 primary special teams units, that's another 75 snaps for that room. So do you like to watch from the sideline, or do you want to be out there covering kicks and returning punts and doing all those other things, right? Those 2 groups have an opportunity to help us there, so we need to keep bringing them along. On the offensive line, it's been mixing and matching. We have had a number of injuries there that go back to the spring and summer, so some guys are working their way back in. We're still waiting for others to get fully cleared to participate. I can tell you that Nino Francavilla and Tommy Barr right now are 2 of our best 5, and then from there we'll continue to mix and match some other guys. Gabe Arena's done some good things. A number of our other guys have done some good things as well. So who's playing guard? Who's playing tackle? Which side? We're still working through a lot of that, but there is some good progress, and I like the development of some of our young players there. Cooper Williams is doing a really nice job with that group. And then finally, wide receivers. Josiah Gathings is our most experienced player. We saw him make a number of plays for us last year. He's continuing to be very solid with his receiving skills and his route running. Want to see him and the entire group continue to come along in terms of their perimeter blocking, the things they're doing without the football, contributing on special teams. Jalen Andrews has been a really nice addition from East Stroudsburg, and he's a guy that I think the game becomes pretty natural to him. He's a quick learner, and he's really benefiting from the structure of this environment, socially, academically, and certainly from a football standpoint. Chance Morrow's done some nice things, Pat Clax, Rex Simmons, and again, just critical for that group to contribute from a special team standpoint as well. So everything is very much a work in progress. I do like being around these guys. There are definitely growing pains, and in some cases it's just reining them in and getting them to consistently behave the way we need them to win football games, and to realize that there are going to be highs and lows, that we need them to be steady throughout. So what's starting with me and then for the rest of the staff, there's a lot of things to work on and questions to answer, but we're enjoying the process together, and we've got a long way to go. We've got a short time to get there, so there's a sense of urgency to do it. But it's going to be a fun ride, and hopefully we can keep an even keel as we get there. So with that being said, I'll open it up for your questions.
Coach, Savion Brown's role, can you explain the dynamic of how often he's working with the linebackers versus the DBs this year versus last year?
Yeah, great question. So with Joe Bowen the last 2 years, Savion was actually in the linebacker meetings for the most part. Now he's in the safety meetings for the most part. Not that his role has really changed a whole lot. I think there's benefit with that hybrid nickel position that, they work closely with both groups. It is truly a hybrid position. I think there's a lot of benefit to that position meeting with the coordinator so that they have a really, really good understanding of the entire defense. But his role has not changed a whole lot. I think where it has grown the most is from a leadership standpoint, because he does have a lot of snaps under his belt the last 2 seasons. He's overcome adversity. He came back last year after a really serious injury in 2024 with his Achilles. Was very proud of what he did last year, and I feel like even though he's an older guy, and sometimes, we get a little worn down later in our career, but I feel like he's really hitting his stride now, being 2 years back from that injury and ready to play some of his best football.
You've had the benefit of an All-American linebacker leading your defense the past couple of years. How possible is it to plug another player, a new player, into that type of role, or how much different is that part of the defense now?
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be a shared responsibility. We talk about 11 playing as one, and that's the only way you replace All-Americans is everybody stepping up their game. All 3 levels of the defense, great communication, being on the same page, fitting things the right way. They've done a pretty good job. We gave up a couple explosives last night in the practice, but for the most part, they've done a good job of playing good team defense together. And we're still mixing and matching a lot of different guys at those linebacker positions, just normal rotations, but also personnel groupings for situational football. So we'll see how it all evolves, but I don't know that there's a Sean Dolak there, because those guys come along in some cases once in a lifetime. But we are capable of playing good team defense together, and I like the mindset of that group. And there's a bunch of good, hard-working guys that want to do the right thing over there.
Do you want the Red and Sean aura and impact and legacy to still be a part of that group this year?
Oh, absolutely. It's all about high expectations. So when you've had great players like that, and I will say that Red and Sean have stayed very connected to what we're doing since they've left. Right before they both went off to pro camp, They were right here in the weight room behind you guys, and spending time around this football team and the coaching staff, and I'm exchanging text messages with them every few days to see how camp is going. And to me, that's just so important. One of the challenges at any university when you have coaches that come and go, different people in the athletic department that may come and go. When these guys go to the NFL, they get pulled in a lot of different directions, and they've got a lot of people in their ear telling them what they should do, what they shouldn't do. And I want to make sure that Sean and Red always feel like they are a big part of this program. And, and I share with other people in our department that we got to make sure it's not just me. Everybody's got to make sure that they're staying connected with those guys and everybody else that has come through here and played in the NFL, because their lives only get more complicated. And you think about the potential impact that some of those former players could make on our program, particularly in this day and age where resources are such a priority, right? It's no longer just 85 scholarships and, have good facilities. And, there's so much more that goes into it now to be competitive. And, keeping those NFL guys connected and engaged, it's challenging when you've only been here 2 years and somebody played 10 or 15 years ago, and I've certainly tried to make a lot of outreach and will continue to do so. But certainly with Red and Sean, because I did coach those guys, it's a little bit easier. I've gotten to know Joe Andreessen a little bit. He graduated just as I got here, and spent some time getting to know him that first few months that I was here. And actually had Joe do a Zoom call with our team that first preseason, and he awarded a couple guys scholarships that were walk-ons that preseason, which was pretty cool. And it's nice to have Joe in Buffalo, and he seems to be pretty visible and accessible here in the community, which is great. But it's a little bit harder when you don't have those personal relationships. You haven't coached the guy. But I've never met a stranger in my life, so I'll continue to try to outreach to those people and make them feel like they're a part of the program. And that's true for all of our former players, whether they're in the NFL or not. On a daily basis, we are trying to outreach to them and let them know that this is still very much their program. We've got a newsletter that we send out that a lot of them receive, that I personally write. And, this press conference today will go out and be sent to all of them, just so they're feeling like they're in this process and on this journey with us.
While you're talking about some of those NFL guys, what is your experience with Jalen Kilgore, and kind of what do you know about him as a player?
Yeah, so Jalen came in towards the end of my tenure at South Carolina, and you want to talk about mature freshmen, guys that, have a great football IQ and a great feel for the game. He had an older brother that was playing college football. His dad was a great guy that was involved in football, so I feel like he was very advanced for a young player, just having a great feel for the game. Obviously, he was a very talented guy from an athletic standpoint, and really cool for me to have a couple guys that I coached at South Carolina, and DJ Moore now, who I coached at Maryland. It's not like I talk to these guys every day, or certainly we're all going in our different directions. You don't see them every day, but really cool to see those guys all here in Western New York, and following some of the other guys. I know Tonka Hemingway is having a great preseason for the Oakland Raiders, and Tonka was a defensive end for us at South Carolina, but played a bunch of special teams for me. Guy I had a great relationship with. So it's very cool, whether it's Sean Dolak or Red or some of these other guys that I've coached at other places, that bought into special teams and how it could further their careers, and now you see it happening at the highest level. it's really neat to see.
And so what does what does Shea Williams bring to your team?
Yeah, he's been a great walk-on for us. Local guy, and I will say this about Shea. He has overcome a lot of adversity. He has worked very hard to be a part of this program, to balance funding for school and academic success and still being a valuable member of this team. I played Division III football where, my parents had to make sacrifices to send me to school, and I had part-time jobs throughout my 4 years as an undergrad and summer jobs and all of those things to try to make it all work. And so no one has a greater respect for those walk-ons and value those guys. We have one of our mantras around here is everyone matters and everything matters. And so whether you are that 4-star high school recruit or an all-conference player or a highly touted transfer, or you are a guy that came aboard as a walk-on and, you're one of those final spots on the roster, everybody's got a role to play, and everybody can add value to the program. And Shea is a good athlete, and he needs to keep progressing in terms of the game slowing down for him, but enjoy being around him every day.
And so what kind of adversity has he gone through?
Well, I would just say that he's had some stuff go on in his family life that I think any of us would say, wow, I mean, that's not easy to bounce back from, and he always has. And we say all the time that football reflects life, and we're trying to prepare these guys for the things that will inevitably come down the road, the highs and lows and the challenges as we get older in all aspects of our life, family-wise and professionally. I would say that Shea has dealt with some of that stuff already as an undergrad. So guy I truly admire for how he's handled himself and his commitment level to this program.
Pete, you have rough count 14 FCS or Division II players on this team. How do you go about identifying which guys at lower levels can make the jump up, and as a collective group, what do they sort of bring in attitude to this team?
Yeah, I love, I'll answer the second part of your question first. I noticed this at South Carolina. We would sometimes get Power 4 transfers there because we had the budget to make that happen. But often the best additions that we had at South Carolina were guys coming from the group of 6 and even the FCS, because they came in, they were hungry, they were grateful. Every day in the building was a good day, right down to the fact that they were getting fed and that maybe they had a little more gear in their locker than what they were used to, and more support, whether it was academic support or more support staff, more strength coaches, a nutritionist. Guys that haven't had those things at other places tend not to take those things for granted, and they immediately see as their weight is going up, their strength is going up, they see the quality of the coaching that they're getting, the fact that maybe they don't only have a position coach, but there's an analyst or a GA in that room helping them as well. So this cumulative effect of the support network around them allows them to continue to grow and develop and take advantage of the resources that maybe they didn't have where they were coming from. So I would say that is definitely a trend that I've seen going back to South Carolina when this transfer portal, really started to ramp up, and certainly now here at UB, and I think it's been really nice to see. But we've got a bunch of Division II guys and a sprinkling of FCS guys, and that's the world we're living in right now. And hopefully, our resources will continue to grow, and we'll have some additional opportunities out there. But I really enjoy coaching these guys, and I think they've all been really good fits in the program and have bought into what we're doing in a short amount of time. And, from a pure, football standpoint, I feel like there's a lot of meat left on the bone with these guys when they come in, that there's still a lot of potential to develop in them, and we're starting to see that. Now, the challenge for the coaches is that it's a race from late January to September 3rd to get them ready, right? You don't have 3, 4, 5 years necessarily anymore to develop them at a slower pace. So it is a little bit more of a crash course to make it happen. But I will say that we're seeing a lot of progress, and I really like all of those guys and what they're bringing to the program.
Speaking of the meat on the bone in September 3rd, seems like the daily improvements at camp. As a coach, if you could move the knob on something like buy-in, intensity, or focus, is there anything that you would move the knob for this team right now?
See, I thought you were going to ask me about buffalo wings.
Well, I was going to point out the Smokey and the Bandit references.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that too. I would say the biggest thing I want to see is maturity and consistency from these guys over the next 2 or 3 weeks. They're going to come out on September 3rd and play hard. I'm not worried about that whatsoever. What I am worried about is reining guys in and making sure there's not any freelancing going on, because, as I mentioned earlier, 11 is one. Whichever side of the ball you're talking about, whichever special teams unit you're talking about, that's really the key. And making sure that when those lights go on against Albany, that guys are playing within themselves. So we continue to work on that. And my team meetings are brutally honest. It's a lot of football 101. It's a lot of how we carry ourselves, what the expectations are, and football fundamentals and understanding situations. And so I'm really pouring everything I have into that, and trying to communicate on the field. We're doing a lot of situations in practice, and you just hope that you get to the point where, you've saturated them enough that the habits are there and the reactions are what you want.
Coach, Elijah Holmes happens to be the only quarterback on your roster with significant playing time. How important was it to get someone like him and another veteran in that room?
Yeah, no, it's very important. And let me say this, Tony Tokars coaches those quarterbacks. So he used to coach tight ends, and Tony's a gritty guy, blue-collar guy from Worcester, Mass. Like, he coaches these quarterbacks hard. He's on that coach-to-player communication, and he's getting after them, which is good, and they're responding. And Elijah's the son of a West Point alum, and I think you could put him through a complete boot camp, and he would not blink, which is great. That's a quality that you want to see in your quarterback. And I will say the whole group is developing some good, thick skin, and you need to have that at that position. You need to after a good play, move on, and after a bad play, move on. It's a lot like playing corner. So I think that group is doing that. Elijah certainly has that game experience, and one of the things that he did at Wingate was his bad plays were very limited, right? He didn't throw a lot of interceptions. He was willing to tuck the ball and scramble when he needed to, rather than force it. And that's something that we're seeing him do here as well.
That was a big part of your success 2 years ago with C.J. Agbana. Is that something you'd like to get back to with that quarterback position, that style of play?
Yeah, the offense is definitely different than what it was 2 years ago, but the thing C.J. did was he got better over the course of the season. His decision-making got better. He allowed us to open up the playbook a little bit. I would say Elijah is more experienced for sure. CJ was an older guy that carried himself very, very well. Elijah certainly does that. And, you know, Jason is probably even more athletic than CJ was. And you see Jason flash at times, whether it's an out cut or a deep throw or a designed run or a scramble. And, you know, he needs to just keep coming along with his comfort level of running the entire offense and you know, taking the easy throws. And you know, it's been cool to see him do some good things, and then, you know, also see where he's at and be realistic about being patient and allowing him to continue to grow to be in position to take the reins of the offense. So we'll see where it all goes here over the next couple weeks. I don't feel – I mean, at some point I'll probably feel like my patience is running out and we've got to make a decision. But right now these guys are getting plenty of reps, and it's moving along nicely.